Once upon a time, in a tiny village encircled by peaks, there resided a 24-year-old youth named Marco. Marco was extremely anxious. His thoughts were constantly filled with concerns. Throughout the day, various worries appeared and vanished, and these worries made him feel troubled and exhausted. He constantly felt sorrowful about his history and stressed considerably about tomorrow. Due to these worries, his thoughts were like a tempest. He couldn't experience tranquility, couldn't rest properly, and even lost the ability to grin. One morning, Marco discovered about a distant village in the highlands. Villagers said that a knowledgeable elderly man resided there. That man previously was a renowned psychologist in the metropolis. He had assisted numerous individuals in his lifetime and had shown them how to discover calmness in their thoughts. Currently, he was elderly. He abandoned the hectic existence of the metropolis and began residing in a peaceful village near to wilderness. Occasionally, he offered guidance to guests. Marco became intrigued and optimistic. He determined that he must travel and visit that elderly man. He considered, "Perhaps this knowledgeable man can assist me discover tranquility." Following numerous days of a lengthy and exhausting voyage, Marco arrived at the village in the highlands. When he arrived there, he noticed a tiny dwelling covered with vegetation. On the veranda of the dwelling, the elderly man was seated silently. His gaze was shut, and he appeared extremely serene. Marco approached him and whispered gently, "Grandfather, my thoughts are extremely anxious. I cannot cease worrying. I desire calmness in my spirit. Can you assist me?" The elderly man gradually opened his gaze and offered a peaceful grin. He stated, "So, you are seeking calmness? Then accompany me. I will offer you a tiny assignment." He brought Marco to his modest courtyard. Then he loaded a glass with liquid entirely filled to the brim. The glass was so filled that even a slight movement would cause the liquid to overflow. He offered the glass to Marco and stated, "Journey from here to the boundary of the village and then return. But remember, you must not overflow even one droplet of liquid." Marco glanced at him with astonishment, but he wished to perform his finest, so he embraced the assignment. He grasped the glass cautiously and began journeying. The path was slender and crowded. Some villagers were journeying, some were rushing. Merchants were summoning patrons, and canines were howling. But Marco did not glance around. His gaze remained only on the glass. He journeyed gradually and cautiously, stride by stride. Villagers glanced at him with astonishment, but nobody interrupted him. They understood he was discovering something significant. Eventually, Marco returned to the elderly man and stated, "Grandfather, I accomplished it. I didn't overflow even one droplet of liquid." The elderly man acknowledged and grinned. Then he inquired, "That's excellent, but inform me, did you notice the youngsters playing on the edge of the path? Did you perceive the canines howling?" Marco glanced surprised and stated, "No, I didn't notice or perceive anything. I was only concentrating on the glass." The elderly man grinned again and stated softly, "That is the mystery. Something that was constantly within you, but you didn't realize. When your thoughts remain in the current instant, then there is no room for anxiety, no bewilderment, and no additional worries. You were only considering the liquid in the glass. At that instant, your thoughts became entirely silent. You were not sorrowful about the history. You were not frightened of tomorrow." Gradually, Marco started to comprehend. This was the calmness he was pursuing. Calmness is not something we discover externally. Calmness is already within us when we exist in the current instant. Marco lowered his head and stated softly, "Grandfather, now I comprehend. If I desire to quiet my thoughts, I must maintain my thoughts in this instant. That is when genuine calmness arrives. The elderly man grinned again. The sun was descending, and the final rays contacted the earth. Birds were soaring back to their homes. Marco began journeying back home. But now he was not the identical anxious youth. He had transformed. He was serene internally because now he understood how to calm the thoughts. If you appreciate the tale, please offer it a like and distribute it with your companions. And don't neglect to subscribe to our channel for more uplifting tales like this one. Thank you for remaining with us.